Hello from the Authors Guild. Thank you for joining us today for marketing and promoting self-published books, part of our Launchpad series for book promotion advice. We're back again with author and publishing expert Jane Friedman, who publishes the Electric Speed newsletter for writers and the Hot Sheet publishing industry newsletter. And we're so happy to be doing this event in collaboration with the Alliance for Independent Authors, ALLI. Our panelists are two seasoned indie authors who are also on staff at Ally, so they bring a wealth of experience from their own careers as well as from helping other authors. Matty Dalrymple is an author of thriller and suspense, and Michael Ronn writes in the sci-fi and fantasy genres. And both Michael and Matty also write prolifically and podcast about writing and publishing. Thanks to everyone for being here. So we're going to be talking about book marketing tactics that work well for self-published books. A lot of the advice applies to any author and any book, but we'll be pretty focused on the indie author track. Last week, we discussed platform building with this group, websites, newsletters, social media. There might be some overlap, but if you missed last week's, I highly recommend checking out the video in the resources section of our website. And many of you in the audience are not members of the Authors Guild, so a warm welcome to you. We love that. Through the Authors Guild Foundation, we put on a ton of free public programming like this. I recommend joining the Guild's free newsletter to get invites to these events. You can find out more about the legal services, website building, other benefits of membership at authorsguild.org. Last but not least, thank you to everyone who submitted questions in advance. Helps us shape the talk. You can use the Q&A box here in Zoom to send in more questions, and we'll cover as much as we can in the hour. And I'll go ahead now and turn it over to Jane Friedman. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Johnny. So just to give people a sense of how we're going to tackle this very expansive topic, we're going to do a little bit of big picture first about money. Then we'll talk about getting reviews, then doing giveaways. We'll talk about outreach to influencers, as well as other types of people who might give exposure to your book. And then paid advertising. And we'll see how far we get or how far into the session we are. And then we might open it up for Q&A at that point. So we will start with Matty. Of all of the marketing and promotion tactics that you engage in, what has been the best return on investment for you?
I would say the best return on investment is community building. So by this, I mean things like belonging to writers groups, attending writers conferences, engaging supportively with people on social media, engaging supportively with people in person. And when I think back through my own author career, I've had Facebook ads come and go, Amazon ads come and go, press promos come and go. But when I look at what has really paid off for me, it has been the things that other people have been able to do for me. And I hope that the other people on the other side of that equation are able to say the same about things that I've been able to do for them. So I have gotten most of the blurbs for my books from people who I knew through a genre writers group or who I met at conferences. I've had people recommend me for promotions because I became friends with them. I became a part of a supportive author community with them. I've gotten featured slots in online social media author takeover type events because somebody else did the event. The organizers asked for a recommendation, and they knew me and knew I could step up to that and recommended my name. Jane, you had recommended me to do a keynote talk at the Between the Pages conference in Missouri. So that's a perfect example of that. And I can think of a similar number of ways that Michael has helped me out. And again, I hope I have been able to return the favor. So it doesn't cost anything but your time and your effort and your commitment. And that is what has paid me back best.
So relationships.
Yeah.
And it's free, as you said. Yeah. Okay. So Michael, how would you answer this question?
Yeah, the biggest return on investment for me has been email newsletter, building an email newsletter. And it kind of ties into what Matty says about building a community. It's just at another angle, right? Mm-hmm. So building that community of readers that are willing to buy my next book when I have a new book. So I have on my newsletter people who have been with me from the beginning in 2014. And that's really cool. So it's grown slowly over time. But I know that every time I have a book release, I've got people that I can send the book to, and I can get that that momentum on day one, and I can get those early reviews, and I can even do things like giveaways to nurture the relationships, like Maddie said. That doesn't really cost me a whole lot, but it allows me to maintain a group of readers who stay engaged with me and stay warm. Because one of the dangers of readers is that they can forget about you. So staying in constant contact with them, even if it's a couple of times a year, is something that isn't really that cost prohibitive. I mean, I think I pay, $100 and something for my email service provider every year. So that 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 has been really helpful for me.
Can I ask what service provider you use?
I use GetResponse,
Okay.
and it's just a personal quirk for me. I happen to like GetResponse, just because of some of the features that it offers. But all the platforms are kind of a dime a dozen. There's dozens of them out there, and it seems like there's always a new one every few years. So if folks want to look into GetResponse, that's a good one. Mailchimp has always been around for a long time. ConvertKit, Aweber. There's all sorts of different ones out there. Just do your research, and they're all fairly comparably priced.
So one of the reasons I asked is because the price you mentioned isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. If you're an author, one hopes that $100 would be reasonable, but I know some people think maybe it costs a lot more. But it sounds, and Maddie, maybe you pay something different. I know I pay a lot because my list size is so significant, but it always
Right.
ends up paying me back in terms of just whether that's enrolling people in classes or driving attention to something that like to an event like this.
Yeah,
And you
but
can
I'm
start
paying,
with free plans too.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, what I'm paying for Aweber is very comparable to what Michael said, and I was just going to say that too, that oftentimes they offer a starter package, so you can start out for free,
Yeah.
and then when your list builds to a certain amount, then you reach a tier where you would be paid.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about getting reviews. So I often hear experts advise that you want to be sure to get a nice number of reviews before you start investing in advertising, which we're going to cover in a little bit, because it can affect people's perception of the book and whether or not they're going to buy. And obviously, I think we all know that Amazon algorithms and other retailer algorithms probably favor the books that have the bigger number of reviews, have more attention and traffic, and so on. But there's this issue of how do you get the ball rolling, especially if you're a new author, especially if it's your first book. And one of the most frequent questions I hear from authors is, how can I get more reviews? Like I was able to get the low hanging fruit and now I'm struggling. So Michael, what can you share to help people over this hump?
Yeah, the first thing to understand is that everybody has this problem. I like to call getting reviews, especially when you're starting off, is trench warfare, because you really it's literally every review you get it how you can get it, until you get to a certain point where it gets a little bit easier because you've got an email list or a community. So what I would recommend people do to get those early reviews is to use services like Book Sirens, Book Sprouts, or there's another Hidden Gems, I think, is another one that people use. And these are services where they have readers who are willing to sign up for free books, and you only pay when a reader downloads it. So you can post your book, and you can post the description and the cover, and readers can browse through it and see if they like it. And then if they download it, then you only pay a fee. I think Booksprout has a monthly fee that you have to pay, but these are really great ways to just get in front of strangers, right? So get what you can get on those sites. And then any community that you have, any contact that you have with a reader. So let's say, for example, a reader reaches out to you and says, "Hey, I loved your book. It kept me up all night. Thank you so much for writing it." Don't be afraid to ask, "Hey, thank you so much. Would you be willing to leave a review?" And in a lot of communications that you have with readers, don't be afraid to ask, because if they're already engaging with you because they liked your work, they're probably going to be willing, a certain percentage of them will be willing to do it. So get as many reviews as you can, however you can get them without being unethical. Never pay for reviews or anything like that. And then I would just encourage you as well to don't be too worried about the advertising piece. Get as many, flaunt what you've got. If you can only get 3 reviews, then advertise with the reviews. If you can get 10 reviews, that's better. You can get 20 reviews, that's better. But if you're writing in a series, maybe try to write the next book, and that will also help you with your advertising. So just my message is, don't be too discouraged. Just do the best you can, and it will get better as you go along.
Matty?
Well, if I look back early in my career, and I was, of course, facing this as everyone does, one of the things I decided to do was pay for a Kirkus review. And this is not paying for reviews like Michael is saying is unethical. So Kirkus is a very well-regarded platform that provides reviews. And they're well regarded because they don't guarantee a good review. You pay for a review, and it's a substantial amount of money. It's like $450, I think. And so you pay for the review, and this is all assuming. I think our whole conversation needs to be based on the idea that you've written a good book and you've had it edited in a professional manner, and so the quality of the work is necessary but not sufficient for getting readers and getting reviews. So I decided, because I didn't have this network, this web of relationships that I talked about earlier, I decided I was going to get a Kirkus review, and I was very glad I did. I spent the $450 or however much it was in 2013. And I was very glad to have gotten a good review, a good quotable review. Now, if I had gotten a bad review, that would have been very painful, because if you've paid them $450 and they give you a bad review, you don't have any choice but to tell them not to publish the review, and you don't get your money back. So it's a gamble. And as I said, it doesn't matter if your book is excellent. You might get a reviewer who just wasn't in the mood that day, or the matchup between the book and the reviewer just wasn't successful. But I was glad I did it. I got a review for my the first book in my first series, and later the first book in my second series. Fortunately, they were both good reviews, and I'm still using them 8 years later, in my social media promotions and things like that. And I think that when readers see a review like that, then it prompts them to think of writing a review themselves. And maybe they'll read something in a Kirkus review and said, as Kirkus said, they really liked such and such, and I like that too. So that was a good investment for me at the time, but I would not be saying that if I had gotten a bad review. And then I think that later on, an important thing to remember is that more reviews are better than perfect reviews. So it's better to have 100 reviews with a 4.0 star average than it is to have 5 reviews with 5.0 stars, because everyone knows that's just your friends and family. So as you start getting more reviews, they're not all going to be 5 stars, and that is fine. In fact, in a lot of ways, that's a beneficial thing. And then the final thing I'd say is asking for ratings is an easier lift than asking for reviews. So I think at some point, I put myself in the position of being a reader and going through reviews, and I'll go in and I'll look at a couple of the really good ones, and I'll look at a couple of the really bad ones, and I'll make my decision. But I'm not reading. If someone has 100 reviews, I'm not reading 100 reviews. I'm just sort of cruising through them. But what I do pay attention to is how many ratings they have. So if 5,000 people have given it a 4.5, I'm more likely to pay attention than if 10 people have given it a 4.5. And if you can go to people and say, look, this is something I do on social media sometimes. This book is at 98 ratings. Who can help? If you enjoyed this book, who can help put me over 100 ratings? Because the ratings, in many ways, as you accumulate reviews, are just as important as the reviews.
So just for clarity for everyone listening, I mean, I've been assuming you're pushing people to leave reviews primarily on Amazon, perhaps Goodreads, which Amazon owns, and which shows up on the Amazon page anyway. Are there any other places that you would send people for reviews? Just quickly, Michael?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that, Jane?
Oh, yeah, sure. Is there any place other than Amazon or Goodreads where you would have people review?
Yeah, certainly. If you can get them on Kobo or Google, that's helpful. Barnes and Noble. Sometimes you have to be a little careful, because some readers only read on certain platforms, so you kind of have to ask them to review where they read. Sometimes I don't like to go and ask them to review on platforms where they themselves are not customers. Yeah. But Amazon, Goodreads, Apple, and Kobo and Google would be the places I would start.
Yeah, I would definitely point people to Apple because I think Apple, more so than other platforms, are very explicit about if you're applying for a certain promotion, you need to have this many reviews and they need to be at least this many stars. Whereas I'm sure that's going on behind the scenes with other platforms, but I don't think any of them are as explicit as Apple is about the requirements for a certain number of reviews or a certain number of ratings before they'll consider a promotion.
So let's segue into kind of a parallel issue, which is when you're doing outreach to influencers or, let's say, professional reviewers or critics, people who you're not paying, they're not customers or readers, they're people in the industry or they're book bloggers. So traditional publishers, they love to seed the market prior to the book launch with these with advanced review copies to build buzz and just on a technical note, they before the book releases, if someone's going to leave a review, it has to happen on Goodreads, which allows reviews before the book releases. For Amazon, it has to come once the book is already out. So just remember that. But in any event, so publishers will approach influencers to get the buzz going. Sometimes they'll even pay for a campaign. So does any of that seeding of the market prior to launch, is that something you would encourage self-publishing authors to do, or should you really focus on getting reviews from your readers? And we'll start with Matty on this one.
The way that I've pursued that worked out well for me, and this is an Amazon angle because it's a Goodreads giveaway, but Goodreads is, theoretically kind of like the social media side of Amazon. Used to be independent, but now, as Jane said, is owned by Amazon. And they offer giveaways, and you can purchase a giveaway for $100 or $120, depending on whether or not the giveaway is on sale that month. And because they're affiliated with Amazon, the great thing is that if you're giving away an ebook, you can just say, you guys already have my Kindle file, and I'm willing to give away X number of copies. And then that's all you do. You tell them the book you want to promote, the number of copies that you want to give away, and send them the check. And so I have done this a couple of times. I always wait for the sales to come up. So twice a year, I will do a giveaway of 100 ebook copies for my first in series books. So one of them would be The Sense of Death. The other one would be Rock, Paper, Scissors. And an outcome that I actually didn't expect, and I can't scientifically attach it to the giveaway, but I can't think of any other explanation, is that I had run a Goodreads giveaway, and at the beginning of the giveaway, The Sense of Death had, I think, 800 ratings. And I checked it again a couple of months later after the giveaway had taken place, and it had 1,200 ratings. And I couldn't see anything else that had happened during that couple of months period other than the giveaway that would have explained an increase of ratings that extreme. And fortunately, it didn't drop the rating. It it retained the rating, but I just got a lot more. So that's an experience I've had that turned out to be successful, and it's pretty low impact. And I was very pleased with the outcome of that.
Now, Matty, you mentioned doing this giveaway on Goodreads. And unless you're exclusive to Amazon, I don't believe you can do an ebook giveaway on Amazon itself. Have you ever done that yourself?
No, I'm not. I have not. I'm not exclusive to Amazon, so I have never done that.
Okay, so let's switch to Michael. In terms of giveaways, like Matty is describing, what do you do?
Yeah. So to answer your previous question, yeah, I have done the Kindle Unlimited giveaways. They can be successful, but there's a lot of evidence that they're a lot less successful than they have been, just because Amazon has taken some steps to penalize free books. So, but yeah, so what I do is I'm very much a different. I just like to release a book when it's ready. So I'll talk about it a little bit a few weeks ahead of time, and I'll offer the book as an advanced reader copy for anyone who wants to grab it and leave an early review. And in that advanced reader copy, I'll leave very detailed instructions on the link they can click to leave the review, and I try to make it as easy for them as possible. But when I'm writing a book one, I usually will try to seed the market a little bit more, just to try to get my readers to leave early reviews. And I think a bigger component of that is being able to get pull quotes from those reviews. So if a reader says, this kept me up all night, or this kept me on the edge of my seat. I can take that and I can put it on a social media graphic, and I can share that on my newsletter or on social media. Sometimes that's more valuable than anything else, is being able to kind of hype that up. And then I can take those and I can put them into your book description and all of that. So there's a practical element of getting those reviews early. But then, so for book ones, I'll spend a little bit more time trying to do some giveaways and try to get the book out to as many people as I can. Another thing that I do with print books that I found to be really surprisingly, curiously effective is there's a lot of free little libraries, probably in your neighborhood. I did a little experiment a few months ago. I ordered, like, I don't know, 15, 20 copies of a book one in one of my series. And I spent an afternoon and I drove around and I put the book in the free little libraries. So when people are walking by, they can open it, they can take it. And then a few weeks later, it was probably like 2 weeks later, I drove to all the places where I left my book and it was gone in all of them. So somebody had taken the book and read it. And I was just floored by that. I thought, you put the book in there and, some people might not be interested. I might still see it there gathering dust or something like that. But the turnover rate in those free little libraries is quite high. So that's something, that it would cost you a little bit to ship the book to your house and then drive around and do it. But that's a great way to give away your book. And then you can even print off like a little card that's got a QR code that gives them a link to where they can go easily leave a review. So that's something that you can do as well. And then just, if people reach out and are interested in the book, I always offer them a free copy. And if they're interested in leaving a review, then they can do that as well. So that's what I do from a giveaway perspective.
That's terrific. It just made me think there's no free little library on my street, and maybe I need to put up my own.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I just
I
want
love
to
those.
I want to confirm with both of you, since this is just really top of mind. I know in traditional publishing, do either of you bother with influencer campaigns of any kind? I will start with Matty. No. Okay, Matty.
Well, I would say the answer I'd given earlier about the idea of relationship building, it extends to the idea of influencers. And so, one of those people I talked about who kindly introduced me to another author that gave me entree to a cross promotion and has given me blurbs for my books and has hosted me on her social media platform, is a very, very successful author in my genre. And so, in a sense, it's nice that this influencer is also my friend. And and I think that if you expand beyond that as a podcaster, you can consider podcasters influencers as well. And I think that the advantage of, and I could say the same for book bloggers, book reviewers, and I mean this in the sense of individuals who, as a labor of love, do reviews of books to support the authors in their genre. I'm thinking of people like Joanne Love for traditional mysteries and Chris Zagorski for thrillers. Approaching any of those people can be really productive because, as Michael was saying, it's trench warfare to get individual people to leave reviews for your books. But if you can connect yourself to one of these influencers, or as I like to call them, promoters, these are people who will promote your book for free, then you have the benefit of reaching their entire audience. And so it can really be a multiplier in terms of the ears you can get hearing your message, or the eyes you can get reading your message. And it's just a matter of developing productive relationships with those people. And I think whenever you approach someone, one of those people, someone whose podcast you want to be on, or someone who you'd like to review your book, or another promoter, an important tip I would offer is make sure that you make it clear what's in it for them and their followers. So if you're pitching yourself to a podcast because you want to be on a podcast, you want to talk about your upcoming book, then you don't want to approach that by saying, I have an upcoming book, can I come on your podcast and talk about it? You want to approach that as, I listened to your podcast, I'm familiar with it, I enjoy it, I understand why your listeners are coming to you, and I think I have something to offer that can support your obvious goal in supporting your listeners. And that is always that's kind of an irresistible pitch when a promoter hears that someone has really done their homework and that they're their goal is to serve the audience.
Yeah, that's a great point, especially when you're approaching someone with a significant platform. They're often not interested in the fact that you have a book unless you're like a best-selling author. They're
Yeah.
interested in how you benefit their readership. Okay, this I think will likely be a quick question, but I just want to be sure. I bet you've been spammed, as I have, by all of these services, especially this happens in Instagram DMs. I can help you sell a bunch of books. I can get you all these reviews. I can do blah, blah, blah for the low, low price of whatever it is. Do any of the, is any of that legit, Michael?
I have not met a single service like that that has been legit. And you have to think to yourself, if somebody figured that out, don't you think they'd be billionaires by now? So no, I mean, generally speaking, no. Those marketing services, I never bite.
Okay. Matty?
Yeah, I think when people are cold calling like that, it's very unusual, but it would be a legit opportunity to pursue. And your time is as valuable as your money, if not more so. And so the time you spend engaging with people like that is likely time wasted. If there's something that seems like it's a possibility, then Michael and I always like to recommend the Watchdog Desk at the Alliance of Independent Authors. Members and non-members can get access to a list of vetted services that will say whether these are good players or bad players. And of course, I always like to bring up Victoria Strauss's Writer Beware. I think Writer Beware is one of those blogs that every writer should subscribe to really just understand what's going on in the industry. And I think that's a really good combination of resources to have, because if you listen to or if you read what Victoria has to say in Writer Beware, even if it doesn't apply to you, you get this sense of what to watch out for, what are red flags, what are the themes that that indicate whether someone is a legit player or not a legit player. And then once you have that overall sense, you can go also to Ally's rating service and see for a specific player, what does the Ally Watchdog Desk think about them? But I think, again, I would go back to the importance of relationships. If, if I'm looking to improve my Facebook ads performance, then I'm going to speak to other people in my author network about how they've gone about that, who they've worked with. There are certainly services out there who can legitimately help you with that, and that's the best way to find them.
Right. I think anyone who's self-publishing, if you don't already know this, understand that you are now a target for all sorts of scammers, more so, I think, than traditionally published authors. I just find that somehow these services, and there's services that will promise you book to film deals, they'll promise you a traditional publishing deal. There's all sorts of things they're going to like dangle in front of you. And I don't know how they scrape all these names, where they're doing it from. Is it from Amazon? I don't know, but I get contacted almost every day by someone wondering about this or that service. Just if they like, I think someone used the term cold call. Like if someone's doing that cold call with you, it's probably not a good sign. Okay, let's talk about paid ads. I think it's fair to say the three most popular places for people to advertise, self-publishing authors anyway, are on Amazon. So the Amazon ads, Facebook ads, and then BookBub ads. Now, if either of you want to mention other places you've had success, by all means. But let's talk about kind of that trinity there. Starting with Michael, do you think that it's necessary to be looking at ads on at least one of these platforms?
Yes, I would recommend at least weaving in one of those into your ad strategy. Do you need to weave in all three of them? I wouldn't do it to start. I would find one, learn it, and then see what sort of results you get. And that is a process. And some advice that some people gave me is, so let's just start with like Amazon, for example. Let's say that you want to learn how to use Amazon ads. Amazon ads are fairly easy to use, but there is a process, right? You have to learn how it works. You have to learn the data and the analytics, and just think about the first money that you spend. Just take $100, for example. That's your tuition. So that $100 that you use to set up your first ads, make all your mistakes, that's how you learn. And that's sometimes hard for people they just want to be able to invest the money and get it to work. But I've used Amazon ads, I've used Facebook ads, I've dabbled a little bit in BookBub ads, and the common thread amongst all of them is that it you have to learn how to use the platform, and you're going to make some mistakes, and they all have their nuances. So there are courses out there by various different people in the community on all three of these ads. I would also recommend investing in a course. Yes, it's going to cost you some money up front. Take a look at all the different YouTube videos that are out there, blog posts, because this is an area where if you don't take the time to learn, then you definitely can lose money, and you don't want to do that. You want to invest money in ways that make sense for that ad platform. And some books might do better on Amazon. Other books might do better on Facebook. Other books might do better on BookBub. You kind of just have to look into, I would just pick one and try to learn it and see where you can go with it. And try not to let it be too overwhelming, particularly Facebook. For example, I find that I have to babysit my Facebook ads a lot, and a lot of people don't like that. Whereas Amazon is a little bit more set it and forget it. BookBub is a little bit easier on that regard as well. So that's what I would say on advertising. I think it's a increasingly important part because paying for access, I think, is just the future. You're gonna have to pay to get in front of readers.
So a quick follow-up. I've once heard an ad expert say, if you're just learning, you need to make really small bets, little experiments. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, when I started Amazon and Facebook ads, I started with very small budgets. Like Amazon, I started with like budgets of, $5 a day. And Amazon doesn't spend your money like that. I mean, you'd be lucky if they spend $5 a day. They usually don't. They're pretty judicious with your money. Facebook is going to spend every dollar that you give them on your budget. And BookBub, I think, is probably somewhere in the middle, right? So start with small bets, start small, and certainly keep an eye on things, and just see how things are working out. And that's why I really recommend, if this scares you, if the whole pay-per-click advertising thing is overwhelming to you, then investing in a course is definitely a good way to do it, because these course providers do a good job of holding your hand and focusing on what's important. Yeah. And helping you put together graphics in the event of like BookBub or Facebook, like what works. And these also have communities where you can join and you can get feedback on your ads, or if something's not working, you can talk to people through a Facebook community or things like that. So that's what I would recommend just to start, because it can be overwhelming for people.
Matty, tell us about your advertising.
Well, for a while, a couple of years ago, I was investing pretty heavily in Facebook ads. I was getting good return on my investment, and that just gradually eroded over time. Some people say that happens if you've exhausted the niche of people that you're addressing. I also experimented with the untargeted ads, which it does make sense to me, that idea that you let the platform decide who to show the ads to rather than specifying the interests or the categories yourself. It didn't work out for me, but I think it might have just been my approach, not necessarily that that's a bad idea. But I did decide that I wanted to focus on where people are going explicitly to purchase books. And so I have focused my attention on BookBub and Amazon. On Amazon, it is a total set it and forget it, because I just have ads running at a very low spend against my first in series books and my 2 nonfiction books. And they're auto ads. And so Amazon is picking who it's going to show them to. And it started out with, a tiny, tiny little expenditure, but, in the sense of like 7 cents in the first month or something like that. But over time, I can see that the algorithm is starting to understand who is going to most likely click on the link. And, the ads are continuing to be profitable. They're getting more profitable rather than like, I spent 7 cents and I made 9 cents. They're getting to be like actually double digits. And so I'm happy to leave that as it running until I have time to like spend more time to focus on Amazon ads. I enjoy BookBub ads just because the user interface is super easy. I think it's super easy for someone who's not into data analysis to understand what's going on and to assess the results and to make data informed decisions and not emotionally informed decisions. I haven't cracked the BookBub ad nut, but I'm enjoying experimenting with it. And I am starting to, after seeing a pretty dramatic drop off in my engagement on Facebook, I am starting to experiment with boosting all my posts for $1. So I'm spending, like maybe $1 a day, $2 a day, and I'm seeing an improvement even at that small amount. And these are not necessarily posts that are explicitly selling my book, but they are posts that are creating a relationship that I hope will lead to book sales down the road.
So I just want to be sure to give you an opportunity to talk about any other paid opportunities that would be ad related, sponsor related. Like, have you ever placed an ad in someone's newsletter or on a podcast, anything like that, Michael?
No, I have not. Yeah, no, I have not. I have not done that. I've mainly stuck to the holy trinity of BookBub,
Yeah.
Amazon, and Facebook. I've done collaborations with other authors where they'll stick my book in their newsletter, for example. But generally
that's-
speaking, you don't have to pay to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So that's just a friendly collaboration.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And Matty?
I have not done the paid approach in that area either.
Okay. All right, we're going to move to audience Q&A shortly. Just 2 more questions before we do that. One, do you think there's any scenario where a self-publishing author would do well to hire help, whether that's help, like hands-on help with the ad campaigns, like if you're not patient enough maybe to take a course or learn it on your own, or to help you get reviews, or to reach out to media? And of course, if you've done this yourself, we want to hear about it. So let's start with Michael.
Yeah. Okay. So my answer is yes, but there is a caveat. I would highly recommend if you have if your book sales support it, then I think it makes sense to outsource some of that so that you can spend your time writing or doing the things that are important to you. But I think a lot of people just like to wave their hands in the air and don't want anything to do with the marketing. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you have to learn how to do some of this yourself so that you can hire it more effectively. Now, that said, I would not hire out anything that would give someone access to your financial dashboards. So there are some people that will hire out, ads or pay-per-click ads, things like that. And that basically you're giving that person the ability to take over your Facebook account or your Amazon account, and you have no idea how reputable they are. Be very, very, very careful about that. I don't ever recommend that. But if you want help with getting reviews, for example, someone emailing on your behalf to different book bloggers or influencers, I think that could be effective and that could take some time off of your plate. But I would learn how to do a lot of that first before you hire someone. And that will, 1, increase the chances of it being effective, 2, decrease the chances of you potentially getting taken advantage of in some way.
Yeah. Matty?
Yeah, I have paid for help on Facebook ads and Amazon ads. And there were kind of 2 different scenarios. One was the scenario where I had been working on Facebook ads myself. I had taken some of these classes that Michael mentioned. I had done research myself or sort of self-paced learning on YouTube videos and things like that. And I just got to the point where I didn't enjoy it. I didn't want to spend the time on it. I found a service that did that for what I thought was a reasonable amount. And I just said, I kind of understand what's going on, and I just want you to take care of it. And then I've also had the experience of going to someone very early in the process and saying, I need help with this, and I don't quite know where to start. And as part of this engagement, can you both do this for me, but also walk me through your philosophy for doing it? Being very open about the fact that my end goal was not necessarily to have to rely on them at all,
Right.
For the rest of time to do that. So I think that whether you're going in with it, with that foundational information, like Michael said, or you're using it as a learning opportunity, and recognizing that, if you're taking some of that person's time away from running your ads and shifting it to educating you about running ads, then, you have to understand what the impact on the actual ad performance is going to be for that. But I think that finding reputable people to help you with those things that you either don't understand or you understand, but you just don't want to do, makes sense in certain circumstances.
Okay, last planned question. This was submitted by someone prior to the webinar, and I just love it. because so often I hear people say, I did all of these marketing and promotion things and nothing worked. Like I couldn't see any results. So the question is, what happens if I do nothing? What are the consequences? Michael?
If you do nothing, then just be prepared for what happens. So you can that certainly is an option. If you do nothing, you publish a book, you throw it out there, and you rely on organic sales, all of that. If you don't get any sales, then you've saved yourself some money, but you're not getting any benefit of the effort that you could put into it. If you put your book up there and it does phenomenally well, then maybe you should be doing some things because you probably would pour gasoline on everything you're doing. So I think most people fall somewhere in the middle, that if you're going to see some success, there are some things that you have to do. Now, what that looks like for you could be different. Email might work for me, might not work for you. Social media could work for Matty, might not work for someone else. So your career is going to look a little bit different, but I think doing some sort of effort is probably advisable.
Matty?
Yeah, I think that anybody who signed up for a webinar from the Authors Guild probably has a goal in mind of either making some money from their work, getting it into the hands of readers, or ideally both of those things. And so not doing anything means that you're not going to be able to successfully pursue either one of those goals. I think that the reasonable medium point is to say, what if I don't do it all? And absolutely don't do it all. Like,
yeah.
I think we can all agree that's a piece of information we can all agree on. Don't do it all. And that if you're feeling overwhelmed by this promotional marketing side of things, pick one thing, give it a try for a little while. If it's not working for you, try something else. When you find something that's working for you, then try to sort of productionize that so it can chug along on its own, and then add one other little thing and do the same thing. And if you find that works, then add that to your basket of things you do. But yeah, we all have to be doing something in order to get our books in front of people, and you just bite off what you can.
I like that you mentioned that you can't do it all, because people do feel a lot of overwhelm, even just with the small number of topics we've tackled. There are a lot of other areas we didn't delve into. And there is a link that Johnny is going to share in the chat where I've put together just a free little guide that steps people through the different marketing and promotion tactics that they can pursue. And I would just suggest this to readers. If you don't know where to start, look at what sections appeal to you the most. I think some people do really well with ads, like they have that really analytical mind and they can really get in there and nerd out on the analytics. And other people do much better with email newsletters or reaching out to influencers. So there's no one way to crack the nut. All right, so let's go to audience Q&A. I hope Johnny will join us and help us navigate the 123 questions that are now there.
123 unanswered questions. We typed some answers. Thank you, everyone. Yes, this has been great. So first I want to say, because some folks in the audience are preparing to publish for the first time in the future, they need guidance on the basics, like how to distribute, whether to go wide or just do Amazon, that sort of thing. Does Ally want to point people to a certain link? If so, you can send me that link, Matty and Michael. I'll share that with the audience. The Authors Guild has a guide to self-publishing, I believe created by Jane Friedman several years ago, but I've looked through it not long ago, and it's pretty evergreen. So that's one thing to look for on our side. Okay.
Johnny, you actually brought up an issue that we didn't delve into, but I think is probably pretty important for marketing and promotion, like a decision that authors make. We touched on it lightly, the decision whether or not you're going to be exclusive with Amazon on the ebook. So that means enrolling in KDP Select, and we have Matty, who's not in it, who has not used that program, Michael, who has. I mean, my impression is that you can be successful either way, but new authors, especially novelists, often lean toward starting there. Do either of you have guidance on making that decision?
Yeah, I'll give you Ally's stance on this. And I did drop a link to a recent blog post that one of our members wrote on exclusive versus wide. Generally speaking, we always recommend that you distribute your books as widely as possible, because self-publishing is a global endeavor. So your readers can come from anywhere around the world. And Amazon's KDP Select program really, for the most part, with some exceptions, is focused in the US. So by going exclusive to Amazon, you're really only tapping into a really small pool of potential readers that are out there. Now, in some cases, it can be more financially lucrative for some authors to be in KU, but you think about building a long-term career. If you put all your eggs in one basket, then if that basket goes away or if all the eggs fall out and get cracked, what are you going to do next? So going wide is really an insurance policy. And it does take some time to build audiences at other places like Kobo and Apple. And that's probably a talk for a whole nother webinar on how to do that. But that just gives you an insurance policy, helps you diversify your income so that if one stream of income were to be choked off or were to be reduced, you would not be as impacted. Now, all that said, what something that worked for me in my career is I did go exclusive to Amazon for my first few books just to see what would happen. The good thing about the KDP Select exclusivity is that it's not permanent. So you can decide to pull your book out every 90 days. So every 90 days you get to make a decision. Do I keep it in Amazon? Do I go wide? And while it's not ideal, you can go in and out of Amazon at different points of your career. So and keep in mind, we are only talking about the ebook, right? So when we talk about the exclusivity argument, we're talking about the ebook only. Print and audio, it's a different conversation. Okay. So yes, if you're going to use KDP Select just to try it, give it a shot, but just know that you're going to have an exit plan at some point. You're going to have some sort of a long-term strategy.
Yeah, great. Johnny?
Now, what about reviews and quotes for marketing collateral? Are you allowed to freely quote reader reviews in your own materials? And is there anything in particular you do to get reviews lined up prior to release, for blurb type purposes?
Yeah, I can take that one too. Yes, you are free to use reader reviews, snippets, and even entire reviews if you would like to do that, as long as you're not mischaracterizing the event or the circumstances of the review. So you don't want to take a bad review and make it sound good. You don't want to take something out of context. If you're taking different snippets from different sentences, you want to make sure you use ellipses, and you just want to be really clear about what it is and where the review came from. But I don't see an issue with doing that, and a lot of authors do that. I would just, in terms of lining up the reviews ahead of time, I would just lean back to the responses that Matty and I gave previously on how to do that.
What costs are associated with giveaways? You mentioned Booksprout, you pay per download. Some other things, obviously, you pay a fee to get on the list to get blasted out. How much money are we talking about for those sorts of things?
Well, I had mentioned Goodreads. That's varies between 99 and 199. I've also used, I think probably a lot of the participants will be familiar with BookBub. BookBub feature deals, and those are very expensive. First of all, you have to be accepted, which is very difficult, and then the costs are very expensive. The more expensive, the bigger the list is that those emails go out to, the more expensive it is. I think in my genre, it's around $500 or $600. But there are many other promotion sites that are kind of like the baby BookBubs that are very reasonably priced. I just signed up for one that was having a sale that you could have your book included for $8. And for $8, I'm like, sure, why not? And this was like a well-regarded, well-known promo site. So as with anything else in the indie publishing industry, it really runs the gamut between $8 and $800.
I just added to the chat, Johnny, there's a self-publishing author who keeps a running list of promotional sites, both free and paid, where you can advertise a giveaway. I think and he kind of puts them in different tiers. I think it's useful reference point for understanding which ones might be worth your investment.
Thank you. Are there, apologies if you covered this, are there benchmarks for how many reviews to expect, like a percentage of the downloads or advanced copies that you have sent out? Is that a consistent ratio?
I do not have a number about that.
Yeah, it's it's always lower than you think. You know, it's a numbers game, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear that answer, but you know, if you email 100 people, you know, you might only get 10% that reply, right? That say they want to read it, and out of that 10%, you might only get one or two. That just unfortunately is what it is. So trying to cast your net as wide as you can is helpful, but just make sure you're not casting your net on readers who would not be a good fit for your book.
That makes sense. Now, a few things on ads. How accurately do you know how a particular ad worked? Say, if you advertise outside of Amazon and somebody buys on Amazon, does the author get data about the source of those purchases? Or is there another way you know?
I'll just comment, not so much on the details of that, but one thing that I like to keep in mind for promotions is spreading them out. So I think that there are sort of two approaches you can use for promotions. One is that you run a bunch of promotions all at once in the hopes that you'll get like an influx of sales, and that will bump you up in the ranks, make you more visible on Amazon. You get a screenshot of the bestseller in your genre thing. Or so that can achieve that end, but it also it makes it very hard to know what that bump up was consisted of. I like to spread my promotions out more, so that if I run a BookBub ad and then I see the sales go up, I can be pretty sure that I can ascribe that to the BookBub ads. But even platforms like Amazon, you would think that Amazon, if you're running Amazon ads on Amazon, you're going to get like the ultimately accurate detail, right? And I've heard a number of people who are Amazon experts saying that the Amazon ads dashboard often underrepresents the number of sales you've made through Amazon ads. So throw that out to Michael too.
Yeah, I'll say that Amazon does give you data on what your return potentially is. Different schools of thought on whether it's accurate. Amazon has said that it is accurate. So you just have to do your research on that. But Amazon does give you that data to at least be able to make some decisions. Facebook is harder because readers on Facebook can be on Amazon, they could be on Barnes and Noble, they could be on Apple. And so you can use a tool like ScribeCount, which will gather all of your sales at different places, and you can compare that to your ad spend to hopefully give you some back of the napkin math on whether that potentially works for you. And the same is true with BookBub. So there unfortunately is some Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets work that you might have to do to calculate your returns, but it's not terrible, but there is some work that you have to do with data analytics.
Something I would highly recommend, especially if you're advertising or doing marketing efforts really broadly, like this could be your own newsletter, website, blog, someone else's podcast, anything really, use tracking links. So you can at least see how often the links were clicked on. That's going to give you one frame of reference. And then if you're willing to become an Amazon affiliate, so this is totally separate from being an author and selling books. If you become an affiliate marketer with Amazon, you can use their affiliate marketing links to link to your book in cases where it's allowed, which if it's your own newsletter and website and so on, it's allowed. And then you can actually track like as much as you want what exactly is happening in terms of conversion, like how many people clicked on this link and actually made a purchase. And you can end up with like, I have 2% conversion on my Twitter links. I have 10% conversion on my email newsletter links, et cetera, et cetera. So, but you have to be willing to do the data analysis for that effort to be worth it.
And you can have the most control if you're selling from your own platform. So one of the attractions of selling direct, like I use PayHip, is that I know exactly who bought what, when, and I have their email address, and I can follow up with them and say, oh, I saw you bought this a month ago, just wanted to check in and see how you liked it. Or if you want a lot of data, then selling direct opens up whole new vistas for data analysis.
If someone is just bleeding money on ads, they're spending $5 or $10 a day and getting no sales from it, is there anything that they should consider first? Like, is the metadata the problem, or is the search terms that they're using more likely the problem, or is it just a case by case scenario. They need to go back to the drawing board.
I would start 9 times out of 10 with your book description. That's the cheapest, easiest thing to diagnose. Get some feedback from other people on whether it's effective. Look at what other authors in your genre are doing. That doesn't cost you a thing to fix. So if you can get that right, that will help improve your conversion a lot of the time. Other times it could be your cover. Do you have the right cover that is resonating with readers? That might not be the case. And then also taking a look at your targeting. So what sort of readers are you targeting? Like with Amazon and Facebook, you can target different readers based on their interests. So it could be that your targeting is off as well, and that doesn't cost you anything to fix. So are you getting the book in front of the right readers? And then how well is your book description potentially hooking them? Those are the two things I would start with. And if it's not those things, if you change those things and you're fairly certain that those are you're confident that those are as best as you can get them, then it gets more complicated because then you have to have conversations about your cover. And nobody likes to potentially change their covers. So that would be the thing I would change last if your ads are not working, but you may not even need to do that.
And don't think you could solve the problem by spending more money.
Yeah, exactly. Do it as cheaply and as quickly as you can, because sometimes you can spend the money and it may not work. So just be careful there too.
I just want to add quickly on the topic of book covers. There's a really great case study, or a number of case studies I've linked to in the resource guide, of self-publishing authors who did cover relaunches or redesigns, and changing that one thing alone, nothing else, had the power to double or triple their sales because they got the cover so wrong the first time. So I know it's painful, but it could be your cover.
Yep.
And I think even if there's not anything wrong with it, like I'm in the process of rebranding my Lizzy Ballard Thrillers, first of all, because I feel like now that I know more, I feel perhaps they're more suggest a little bit more fantasy than thriller, which is not the message I want to send. But also, I just think freshening up every like 5 years, it kind of makes sense. If you've had books out there and sales are waning, I think that it makes them more attractive to those promotional sites like BookBub, that if they've seen the same book come through several times with the same cover, if now you can present them with a different look, it probably appeals to them more as well.
Right. We're closing in on the hour. And just to be clear, a few people asked about graphic design. So Amazon ads, you're not having to create any graphic material. It's promoting your book. But do you have any suggestions for taking care of graphic design? Reedsy to hire a freelancer, or just using Canva yourself? Or do you not?
I think for BookBub, Canva is fine, and the BookBub blog has plenty of examples of very successful ads, and let's just say they're not subtle. So even if you're somebody for whom book cover design feels out of touch, take a look at the examples they give, because between the Canva templates and the advice that BookBub provides, I think that people can probably create very viable ads for BookBub themselves.
Yeah. And Canva, BookBrush is another tool. That's a paid tool, but that's a good tool that offers very similar functionality to Canva. On Facebook ads, what a lot of people are doing is they're just using like stock photography. So sometimes you can experiment. I mean, I had pretty good success with stock photography versus designing my own graphic on Facebook, because Facebook has some weird, or at least they did for a while, some weird things about text on your images and things like that. So sometimes with Facebook, you might be able to get away with something simpler than that.
All right. One short question. Is there anywhere to find an assistant to help with marketing, or is word of mouth and asking other authors a better bet?
I would use word of mouth.
Yeah.
People mention having a great assistant, and then people say, "What's her name?" And it's like, "Well, it's my assistant. You can't have her. Her time is limited."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, word of mouth. I mean, there are platforms out there like Upwork where you could potentially find someone. I think there are different, I don't know off the top of my head, but there are various other virtual assistant platforms you can use. But you're going to have to pay. So just be be prepared. I would try to do word of mouth. There are author assistants out there that market themselves as author assistants as well, and you can usually find them by word of mouth.
Great. All right, we will put a pin in it, but it's always an ongoing discussion, these things, isn't it? So thank you so much to Ally, Michael Ronn, and Matty Dalrymple. Thank you to Jane Friedman for moderating today.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks all.
everyone. Bye-bye.